And of course, we have to keep talking about the budget. It's tomorrow. But what are we looking for? What's a wish list? And for example, one of the pre-announcements is a near $3 billion boosting apprenticeships commencements program, which is going to actually got set up last budget and it's just been extended. For his thoughts on this program's extension, let's have a chat to Chief Executive ACCI Andrew McKellar. Now, it sounds good that the program's been extended, but you don't sound so happy.
Well, good afternoon. Look, I guess what we saw yesterday was a 3-month extension of that program. Obviously, if we're going to have the full effectiveness of that, which is very important, then we would be looking for a longer-term commitment to the program. I guess let's wait and see what comes out tomorrow. Hopefully that will be good news. But look, it's been a valuable program. We now have apprenticeships running at record levels, and I don't think that would have been the case if we hadn't had this sort of support in there, which really adjusts the business case for an employer to take on an apprentice or a trainee. And that's critical at a time when we're dealing with one of the most severe skill shortages in the Australian labour market really in the past 50 years. One of the pathways to address that crunch that we're facing at the moment is to, of course, invest in more skills.
So, of course, Andrew, as you just alluded to, it was a very successful program. Apprenticeships were in secular decline before this program kicked in. But I guess at some stage, when does it become a pandemic policy that eventually will need to run its course? Why does it really need to keep going now that we're post-pandemic?
Well, as I say, we are now facing, in the Australian economy, one of the most severe shortages of skilled labour that we've ever faced. We've got an unemployment rate which is hovering on 4%, tipped to go lower. So we're at or almost beyond full employment in the current circumstances. If we want to avoid a situation where there's more pressure coming through in terms of prices, obviously wages have still got some upside to go, but I think if we want to avoid these supply side constraints in the economy, then we've got to have an integrated strategy to address labour market shortages. Investment in skills is a critical part of that, and this program is probably one of the best measures of support we've ever seen in that regard. We've got to encourage more people to come in and participate in the labour force. So whether that's women with children wanting more childcare, getting back into the labour force, staying in the labour force, whether that's senior Australians, people who otherwise might go on to the age pension, wanting to keep that flexibility alive and stay in the labour force. I think all of those things have got to be looked at, and of course migration as well can't be ignored. We've had our borders shut for just on 2 years. They're now open again, but we need to see those inflows of skilled migrants coming back in as soon as possible.
So what's the balance then, Andrew? If we continue this program for 2 years, just as we're reopening the borders, do we just snap back and have too much supply all at once, and that might keep downward pressure on wages, which is the opposite to what we're looking for?
Well, we're absolutely a long way from that point, and I'm sure we will see upward pressure, some degree of upward pressure on wages through the course of this year. I think that's absolutely inevitable. We can't continue to push forward with the levels of demand that we've got in the labour force at the moment. As I say, 4% unemployment rate at the moment. It's tipped to go lower. So look, I think we've got to keep that perspective. We're nowhere near a situation where that's going to turn around. This program is helping to add to supply at a critical time. It's always been a challenge to make the business case stack up for an employer to take on apprentices or trainees. And this program's really helped to do that. So I think that's why it's been a good thing. Whether it can be there in the longer term or not remains to be seen. But we do need to have some certainty in the current environment if we're going to keep that going.
Andrew, just on the skilled migration side of the equation, are we a little bit too complacent in Australia that we just snap our fingers and be able to get exactly what we need? Because we're not the only economy around the world who are trying to go and seek those skills at the moment. What can we do better as Australia to go and attract the best and brightest?
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, we have to recognise, that there's intense competition out there in the various categories of immigration that we're seeking to bring in. So, I think we've got to make it easier for people to come here. Yes, we have a lot of great natural advantages, but really, I think here, if there's a pathway to permanent residency as part of that immigration process, then I think that's something that can be very attractive. Not putting some of the little hurdles in the way in terms of visa charges and costs and administration. I think streamlining all of that will really help to make it easier to get the sort of people in that we need. In many cases, the rules and regulations around this, which are designed to ensure that we're not getting people in when we've got, people available locally, they can be counterproductive at times. So we have to get that balance right.
Now, of course, Andrew, we're saying the budget is coming up. What else was on the ACCI's wish list? What else would you like to see to get those skills up, to get our own workforce employed?
Oh, look, I think it's not just the labour force shortages. At the moment, the other pressure point in the economy, of course, is supply chain. Ultimately, we've got to reduce the capacity constraints that are on the Australian economy at the moment. For the past 2 years or so, we've seen a very expansionary fiscal setting. We've seen a lot of demand side stimulus. The issue now is on the supply side of the economy. It's labour force, it's supply chain. Business investment has been running at its lowest level, I think about 14 years. So, reigniting business investment, seeing that, building productive capacity in the economy, reigniting productivity growth. So again, a tax reform agenda here. If we were able to see things like an extension of the 25% company tax, which applies up to 50 million annual turnover at the moment, take that up to 250 million annual turnover, I think that would be an important step. I don't know whether we'll see that tomorrow, possibly not, but it needs to be on the agenda. Things like the immediate asset write-off, loss carryback provisions. These have been very attractive provisions, which I think have helped to boost investment during the pandemic period. It's too early to see those phasing out, and I think it's important that we send a signal that sort of encouragement to ongoing investment will remain in place.
We'll see what Treasurer Josh Frydenberg has in store. Maybe some surprises at 7:30 tomorrow evening. Andrew McKellar, Chief Executive of the ACCI. Thanks for joining us here on the program.
Thank you.